Hey guys, so today I'm going to do another live brush swatch video. This one of the SIR JOHN X LUMINESS Can't Wait to Be Queen eyeshadow palette. It's part of their Lion King collection. So this is the outer packaging. As you can see, the net weight is 0.057 ounces or 1.62 grams by 12. So each eyeshadow is 1.62 grams. And you see the colors on the side there. It says limited edition collection. I have already broken the seal here when I received it. And that is the back of the packaging with all of the eyeshadow ingredients. It does contain talc and mica and all the other typical eyeshadow ingredients. And it looks like it is made in China. So it has a 6-month expiration date, which isn't really that long, to be honest, especially for an eyeshadow palette. So packaging is a little difficult to get into. Sometimes what I do is take a little spatula like this to help me open packages without ripping them. I do like this touch here. It says, "Remember who you are," which is a quote from Mufasa in the original movie. And it has a cardboard inner sleeve. They did print the inside of the package, which you don't really see all that well. And then this is the actual palette. So it's a rose gold plastic and it has the really beautiful, I guess it's printed, it's not a sticker, and you can see the rose gold kind of peeking through there. So I think the packaging on this palette itself is just really beautiful, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to buy it. So turn it over there, you're going to get a lot of reflections. But again, it says Disney, The Lion King, Can't Wait to Be Queen, 12-piece eyeshadow palette, again made in China, 6 months. So I'm going to set that there for the moment. And I will be using the standard brushes I use for all of my live brush swatch videos. And for the shimmer or metallic shades, I will be using the MAC 242. This is a flat synthetic brush, and I believe this one is still sold by MAC. This one here is the MAC 239. I believe this one was a natural hair brush, just a little flat shader like that. I think they have now gone away from natural hair brushes altogether, so their newer brushes that they're currently selling, I believe, are all synthetic, but I think they still do have a 239. So if you're interested in this general shape, they may have one, it just may perform differently. So I'm still using it because if you want to compare this palette against some of the other palettes I've swatched, I'm just using those for the sake of consistency. And to clean my brushes in between so they're not wet, I will be using the Vermona Color Switch, which is just this sponge-like material that you just wipe your brushes on. And I will also be using a primer on my arms, and again I will be using the Lorac Behind the Scenes Eye Primer. This isn't one that I typically use on my eyes, but I do use it for brush swatches just because it's really easy to dispense a large amount. Okay, so opening the palette, it just has a snap closure here. It's not magnetic, and I forget the exact price on this. I want to say it was in the $40 range. So it would have been nice to have a magnet there, but I'm not too hung up on that. It has a nice big mirror, which you can see, and has the standard plastic insert. And then these are the shadows. You can see I haven't touched them at all. Again, it is that reflective rose gold plastic, so you'll see some reflections there, but can't be helped. So I do like that they printed the names of the shadows on the palette. So it looks like there are 5 matte shadows and 7 metallics. So try and keep this in the frame while I'm swatching. I think I'm going to try and do finger swatches as well as brush swatches. So prime up my arm here. So I like to give that just a couple seconds to kind of set. And I have these Kirkland makeup wipes that I will be using to clean off my arm in between and clean my fingers. Okay, so it looks like the first row is all shimmer or metallic. So I think I'm going to do the finger swatches first. So let's see here. Just kind of do a little circular motion like that. Very nice and vibrant. So those are the first 4 shades here. So I'm going to try and give them a bit of a gap. So you can see when you swatch that purple, a lot more of the red tones come out. All right, so those are the 4 finger swatches. And this is a dry brush. So you can see there is some fallout there. The next one here is, oops, looks like my brush was shedding. This one is the shade Zazu. The first one was Mufasa. So, few YouTubers I've seen have done reviews. I think they've all reviewed this palette pretty well. Based on my swatching experience so far, I would say a dry brush is probably not the best bet. I would suggest, I think that green swatched a little better. I would suggest doing your eyes first, and it's probably better to either use your finger or a wet brush. So the color, I just went into that purple again. You can see you can kind of build it up. All right, so to keep that brush nice and dry, I have a similar brush here from Kylie Cosmetics. This is the number 14 brush, and I'll show you these side by side. I think the Kylie brush is a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker, but similar shape, and this one is synthetic. So I'm gonna spritz this with some MAC Fix Plus. Just one spray on both sides, give it a little shake. And I guess I'll go in to the last one, which is Sire. That green shade is called Meadows. So try and pick that up again. And I think when it's wet, it does give a little bit more of that foiled effect. You can see there. So a little bit more of the richness comes out. So again, you can see some fallout. So I think a wet brush might be the best way to go. At least with that last shade. All right, so now I am going to take a clean makeup wipe here and just show you how easily these remove. And I'm just taking a towel now to kind of remove any of the excess moisture. And again, with the Lorac eyeshadow primer. And while we're doing that, I'm going to take some of the MAC brush cleaner and I'm going to clean that Kylie brush just in case we want to go back and do any more foiled swatches. Some of these more pigmented shades are really hard to kind of get out just with a quick brush clean. So it looks like it's stained a little purple, but I think that's mostly out. All right, so again, my arm is primed. All right, so here we are going into the shade Nala. And I'll have to go back and do my finger swatch because I just forgot to do that. So another kind of crumbly metallic, really pretty kind of dirty antique gold shade though. All right, so this one is the only metallic in this row. All right, so I am going to now go in with my finger. That one is Nala, and then we have 3 mattes, so this one is King. It feels smooth, but it doesn't pick up a lot of powder, if that makes sense. So sometimes when you go into really buttery mattes, sometimes they still you kind of get a lot of kick up. So these ones are a tiny bit drier. They don't feel really powdery. It's hard to explain. So depending on your preference, if you don't like a lot of kick up, you may not like these. You can see there's still a lot on my finger there. I don't think I actually did the finger swatch on my arm, did I? Okay. So there is the finger swatch of Nala. So much more intense. All right, and I'm gonna go in with that Kylie brush again. Still feels kind of damp from the brush cleaner, but I'll just give it a quick spritz anyway. And then I'm just gonna kind of dab off any of the excess. All right, so going into Nala. Ooh, this one you can see it kind of, so these are just kind of a softer formula, I think. All right, so, okay, so this didn't actually do as well as maybe the finger or even the dry brush. So you can see 3 different kind of finishes there, depending on your preference. And sometimes it's just hard to know before you start applying them to your eyes, depending on what kind of eye primer or base you're using, what other shadows you may have on. Sometimes it's just hard to know until you start applying them how they're going to perform. So that's the only metallic shade. So going into the first matte, this is King. So it does kind of create a little bit more kick up when you use a brush than with your finger, but it's still not terrible. So I would say that really blends pretty well. So I'm pretty happy with that. Going into Pride Rock. And I don't know, in a way, if this embossing on the shadows kind of helps capture some of the loose shadow that's picked up when you put your brush in. That'd be kind of an ingenious idea, actually. I don't know if that was the intent, if they were just kind of going for some sort of like generic kind of African pattern. So this last one is called African Clay. So more of a red toned brown. So, and you can see when I'm kind of doing that, some of the powder is kind of, you know, kicked away. So yeah, so I think a brush here definitely did a better job than the finger swatches. So all the mattes in here I think are pretty warm toned. You have some of those nice jewel tones to kind of play against them, but there you go. All right, and then the last row here, it looks like we have 2 mattes and 2 shimmers. So again, taking a clean wipe. Okay, again, applying the eye primer. Okay, so the first matte here is called Safari Khaki. It feels same as those other mattes. This next one is a metallic gold called Simba. Then we have the shade Wisdom. And then finally another metallic called Landscape. So it seems like these are the lightest shades of the palette. So that one is a very vibrant kind of really yellow gold. And this one's a nice kind of pinky, it's almost like a dark champagne or metallic pink. All right, so going into that first shade again, called Safari Khaki. I almost said Safari Kick Up because it seems like I'm getting a little bit more kick up from this shade. It's not really giving me a lot here. I think when I'm swatching it, a lot more of the kind of ochre golden yellow kind of undertones come out. And again, I am cleaning my brush, but there is a chance it could be slightly kind of contaminated by some other shadows. But I don't have 12 identical brushes. So going into Simba, again, making sure that this one is nice and clean. So that one actually applies pretty smoothly. It's crumbling a little bit more in the pan. And then back to the matte. And I will say, if you don't, for whatever reason, want to use these shadows damp, and you have nails, or for whatever reason putting your finger in the palette is not really an option either, you can buy packs of those little sponge tip applicators that you used to get in like the drugstore type palettes, and use those instead. So those usually do pretty well for shadows that normally perform best with your finger or a wet brush. All right, so this one was Wisdom. And both the finger and the brush swatch look pretty good to me. The brush swatch just looks like a little bit more opaque maybe. So this one, the Safari Khaki, didn't really seem to apply as well with a finger. But I think most people will use a brush for matte shades anyway. I am trying to swatch these on the less hairy side of my arm, but this one may have just picked up a little bit more just based on where it was, so it's not an exact science. All right, so last shade here is called Landscape. And this one needs a little bit of help, but I think with the second pass there, it seems like it's pretty opaque. And I think that almost looks identical to the finger swatch in terms of opacity. So that is the last row there. And again, I'll try one more of the foiled shades here. So again, I just wet this Kylie brush with some Fix Plus and kind of dabbed off the excess, and then I'm going in with Simba. So let's see how this one does. So it might be slightly more foiled than the first finger swatch, but I don't think it is by much, depending on how much you want to try and build up that color. So anyway, so those are the last 4 shades of the palette. And again, taking a clean makeup wipe. So I don't see any staining or anything from any of those shadows. Not that I expected that there would be. Okay, so what do I think about this palette? So I mainly bought this for the packaging or kind of the collector aspect of it. I've purchased a lot of the Disney collections that MAC has put out. So I really just liked the packaging, and I do like Disney and I do like The Lion King. I think it came out when I was about 9. So I was still kind of a kid and everything, and I enjoyed watching it, and I still love the music and all that. My husband and I took a trip to South Africa when we were kind of earlier in our relationship. So South Africa and Africa in general, I guess, kind of hold a special place. And I am, I guess, a cat person. I don't currently have a cat, but I do really love the kind of lion look on it, and the name and everything. Can't Wait to Be Queen, which is a play on the Can't Wait to Be King song from The Lion King. So that was kind of the main reason why I decided to pick it up. The shades are fine. If I were to create, I do wish they'd put a magnet, but if I were to create my own palette, I probably wouldn't have picked these shades, but I haven't actually played with this on the eyes yet. And I did want to kind of give you more of an in-depth look at how the shades look after swatching. The lighting seems to have kind of changed a little bit, but anyway, those are the shades. So they really don't look too bad. Some of them I kind of dug into a little bit more than others. Yeah, so the mattes were a really interesting texture. I wasn't really expecting that, so I'm interested to see how those will perform. And I think my favorite shades were probably Nala and Landscape, just because those are the types of shades that I typically go for. I don't typically wear kind of jewel tones like that. And I think the mattes are, it's a good variety of tones. They're just all more in the kind of warm, golden-y type territory, which you might expect from a palette like this. So should you buy this, if you have the cash and you either really love the color story here or The Lion King or Disney or whatever, I don't think it's a bad palette. If The Lion King or Disney don't have any sentimental meaning for you, then you might choose to skip it and purchase another palette instead. I did pick this up from Ulta when I had a 20% off coupon, so that was definitely a plus. So I would definitely recommend checking Ulta, especially if you could get points through their reward system instead of purchasing directly from Luminess. And I think HSN or some other retailers have it as well, and they might have some different bundles or that sort of thing that you could look into to see if that would be something you're interested in. So again, that is this palette. And I did want to quickly show you, I did pick up the Sculpting Palette. So let's zoom out on this one. Okay, so this is the Sculpting Palette. You can see pretty similar design to the eyeshadow palette. Obviously this one is, I think, Simba. This one is Nala. Really similar. This one has a 12-month expiration date, so I'm wondering if those metallics may just not last as long, and that's why they have a 6-month expiration on the eyeshadow. This one is made in China as well, and you get 4 grams per contouring powder, so that's 24 grams. Alright, so just quickly showing you this one if you're interested. It did have a plastic insert that I already took out, has the same nice big mirror that does kind of stay up if you're interested in that for travel. So those are the shades, and what I really liked about this palette and why I chose to pick it up is this one I think I might actually get more use out of than the eyeshadow palette, but there are more cool toned shades in here, and I saw one of the videos that Sir John did kind of explaining this and what he was thinking when he created it. And I think Jackie Ina did a video reviewing this collection where she said that she prefers bronzers, and so she thought this was a fine palette, just didn't really, it wasn't her preference, I guess. And I think for me, I'm kind of the opposite, being someone who is fair and more cool toned. I think this will probably work out better for me than like a standard bronzing powder would. Saying that, however, there are a couple shades in here which I think lean a little bit more warm. So I think I could maybe get away with using the shade down here called Marula as a bronzer. And some of these other shades, which would definitely be too dark for me as a contouring powder, I could use as eyeshadow or liner, that sort of thing. So the shades are Kasai, Pumbaa, Dusk, Cub, Marula, and Heritage. And I guess I don't have a primed arm, and I think I'm just going to leave it unprimed for that. So typically if I wear a foundation, I would probably set it with a powder, so I feel like maybe an unprimed arm is the way to go. So these feel very similar to the, oh, this one feels actually a little bit dry. Dusk. That's interesting. All right, so those are the first 3 shades. That's Kasai, Pumbaa, and Dusk. And just quickly, so again, finger swatches aren't really the best way to show off a face powder. So just cleaning off my fingers there, making sure they're nice and dry. Cub to me almost looks like a blush shade, so I would probably use Dusk as my contour. Cub you could almost use as kind of a bronzing type blush, at least on my skin tone. Marula looks like it could be a bronzer. Pumbaa maybe like a, I don't know if I would even call it a dark blush. These would probably be eyeshadows on me, and that one would probably be like a liner shade. So going into Cub, Marula, and Heritage. So Cub really doesn't, okay. So I think these two, Cub and Marula, swatched the best. I don't know if they have, if they're 2 of the lighter shades so they don't have as much pigment, or however they were manufactured. So I think the best way to kind of show these would probably be to apply them to my face, but I'm not wearing makeup yet, so that doesn't really help. All right, so I have a Bobbi Brown blush brush here, which I thought would be big enough but dense to kind of, I don't know, give you as much color as possible. So because obviously these will be bigger swatches, I think I'm just going to, I don't know, do a few here. So I'm gonna start off with Dusk. And again, this isn't really gonna, for this one you almost need a better contouring brush. It's not really picking up. Again, these aren't kicking up a lot of powder, so I appreciate that. This brush is shedding something awful though. I really need to clean out my brushes. Okay, so I'm gonna go in again to, is it Cub? Yeah, Cub. So I just used the Color Switch Duo again. And again, you're just not really seeing a ton of color payoff. All right, so let's go into a few more. Let's go into Marula. So that one, you can see there's a lot more on the brush. So you can definitely see, I guess, some color differences on my arm, but just given the nature of the product and the type of brush, it's just not going to show up that well as a swatch. And I think Sir John said that, you know, these are supposed to be more kind of subtle. So am I in frame? Okay. So there you can see that one is Pumbaa. So again, that one was Pumbaa, or yeah, Pumbaa. This one was Marula. I think that was Cub, and that was Dusk. So I think that's at least 4 shades that someone of my skin tone could wear. You know, this would definitely be a heavier bronzer on me. You would have to maybe use a lighter touch. All right, so then let's go in. Let's see if I can do this on the other arm. This one is Khaki. I'm not ambidextrous. All right, so this one is Khaki. Definitely darker color. And then finally, the last shade here is Heritage, which is going to be super, super dark on me. So I think that would act as a nice contour shade on deeper skin tones, but it just makes my arm look dirty, really. Okay, so those are the contour shades, and again, I don't know what's going on with my brush. So that is what they look like after they've been swatched, before I blow off all the little hairs there. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a quick look at that palette since I did purchase it as well from Ulta. So this one I think I will get more practical use out of, even though I do love the packaging on this one as well. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you have any questions or thoughts on how I can improve this type of video, please leave those down below. And if you haven't already done so, please hit that subscribe button, and I will hopefully talk to you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.